Dr. Vanessa Mitchell stares down the barrel of Officer Blake Snyder's gun, her heart pounding against her ribs as rain pelts the windshield. "Please don't shoot," she whispers, her trembling fingers clutching her FBI credentials. The officer's face transforms from smug contempt to shock as he reads FBI Director on her badge. But this isn't where her story ends. It's barely where it begins. What Officer Snyder doesn't know is that Vanessa has been investigating his department for months, and his superiors will do anything to keep their secrets buried. Will she survive the night as dark forces mobilize against her? If you believe in justice prevailing against systemic racism, hit that subscribe button and like this video. Tomorrow's episode reveals how a single traffic stop exposed corruption across an entire city. The rain had been falling for hours as Dr. Vanessa Mitchell drove back from Millfield Memorial Hospital. Her mother, once the pillar of strength in their family, now lay connected to machines, recovering from her second stroke. Vanessa gripped the steering wheel tighter, her mind replaying the doctor's cautious optimism about recovery. 6 months into her historic appointment as the first black female FBI director, Vanessa had barely found time to process the achievement. Growing up in small-town Alabama, the daughter of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to put her through college, the odds had been stacked against her from birth. Millfield had always been a complicated place to return to. On the surface, it was a picturesque small town with its neat main street and friendly waves. But beneath that veneer simmered racial tensions dating back generations. As a child, Vanessa had experienced this duality firsthand. The polite smiles that never reached the eyes, the locked car doors when she walked past, the subtle steering of white children away from playing with her. Lost in thought, she barely noticed the flashing lights in her rearview mirror at first. Checking her speedometer, she frowned. 38 in a 35 zone. Surely no officer would pull someone over for going 3 miles per hour over the limit. She signaled and pulled to the shoulder, rain drumming on the roof as she reached for her license and registration. Officer Blake Snyder approached, his hat pulled low against the downpour, flashlight beams sweeping invasively across her interior. Something about his stance immediately put Vanessa on edge. The aggressive posture, the hand already resting on his holster. She noticed with professional alarm that his body camera's indicator light was off. "License and registration," he barked, without preamble or greeting. "Good evening, officer," Vanessa replied calmly, handing over her documents. "May I ask why I was pulled over?" "You were speeding," Snyder snapped, his tone dismissive, "and your left tail light looks defective." Vanessa knew her tail light was perfectly fine. She'd had the car serviced just last week. "I apologize if I was slightly over the limit. I'm returning from visiting my mother in the hospital." Officer Snyder barely glanced at her license. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." "Officer, it's pouring rain. Is that really necessary for a minor traffic violation?" His expression hardened. "I said step out of the vehicle now. I'd prefer to stay in my car given the weather. If you could just—" "This isn't a negotiation." Snyder's voice rose as his hand moved to his weapon. "Exit the vehicle immediately, or I will remove you myself." Vanessa recognized the dangerous escalation pattern from countless FBI training sessions. "Officer, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. I'm going to reach for my credentials now." She moved slowly, deliberately, pulling out her FBI identification. Snyder drew his weapon, pointing it directly at her. "Hands where I can see them." "My ID is right here," Vanessa said, heart racing but voice steady. "I'm the federal director of— I don't care who you think you are. Hands on the wheel." With the gun barrel inches from her face, Vanessa carefully placed her FBI credentials where the flashlight beam illuminated them. "Officer Snyder, I am Dr. Vanessa Mitchell, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm asking you to lower your weapon immediately." The transformation in Snyder's face happened in microseconds, contempt to confusion to shock to fear. The gun wavered, then slowly lowered. I didn't." Before he could finish, another patrol car pulled up. Lights flashing. Officer Johnson, Snyder's partner, approached cautiously, taking in the scene with evident concern. Vanessa was already on her phone. "Deputy Director Garcia, I need immediate assistance in Millfield. I've just been held at gunpoint during a traffic stop. Yes, my credentials were clearly presented. The local police chief arrived 15 minutes later, his face ashen. Officer Snyder was immediately disarmed, handcuffed, and placed in the back of a patrol car, his protests falling on deaf ears. Director Mitchell, I cannot begin to express. My apologies, Chief Reynolds said, his expression appropriately grave, though something flickered behind his eyes that Vanessa couldn't quite place. This is completely unacceptable behavior. Officer Snyder has been suspended pending a full investigation. Vanessa nodded curtly, accepting the apology while maintaining her professional demeanor. But as she watched the officers conferring in hushed tones, she caught furtive glances in her direction. A subtle nod between the chief and Officer Johnson, a look that communicated far more than words. She had won this battle, but something told her the war was just beginning. Morning light filtered through the blinds of the temporary FBI field office in downtown Millfield. Vanessa stood before a wall covered with photos, reports, and connecting threads, a visual map of corruption that had taken her team months to compile. Few people knew the real reason she'd been in Millfield. Her mother's illness was unfortunately real, but it had provided perfect cover for overseeing a covert investigation into the Millfield Police Department. 6 months of surveillance, and then I experience it firsthand, she said to the three. Agents gathered around the conference table. Agent Miguel Torres, her second in command, Agent Denise Washington, their community liaison, and Dr. Aidan Kim, their cyber specialist. We've confirmed systematic discrimination across the board, Torres reported, sliding a tablet toward her. Traffic stop database shows 87% of all stops target minorities, despite Millfield being only 31% non-white. Washington added, and we've identified 11 suspicious deaths in custody over the past 3 years, all classified as accidents or natural causes with minimal investigation. The corruption extends beyond the police department, Kim noted, pulling up a complex network diagram on the main screen. Local business owners, particularly the Harrington Group, show suspicious financial ties to both the police department and city officials. Vanessa pointed to Officer Snyder's photo. What's his history? Kim tapped his keyboard. 11 previous excessive force complaints, all involving minority subjects. Strangely, all 11 disappeared from official records, but we recovered them from backup servers. And this is interesting, Washington said, playing a video clip showing Chief Reynolds at what appeared to be a private country club event. The audio was clear. We're making progress cleaning up certain neighborhoods. Property values will rise once we've removed the undesirable elements. Our anonymous whistleblower provided that yesterday, Torres explained. Officer Johnson is taking an enormous risk. Vanessa nodded thoughtfully. After last night, we need to accelerate our timeline. They know I'm here now, and they'll be nervous. We've uncovered something big, Kim interjected, pulling up financial records. Shell companies linking Mayor Francis, Chief Reynolds, and businessman Victor Harrington. Money moving through offshore accounts, kickbacks, bribes. And look at this pattern. The screen showed a map of Millfield with property transactions highlighted. Harrington Industries has been buying properties in predominantly black neighborhoods at suspiciously low prices. And look at the police incident reports in those same areas. Targeted harassment to drive residents out, Vanessa concluded. Classic gentrification through intimidation. We have enough evidence to make arrests within 48 hours, Torres said. Just need to coordinate with the Department of Justice. On Vanessa's phone rang with an unlisted number. She put it on speaker. Director Mitchell. The voice was digitally altered, unrecognizable. Back off now or we'll make sure you regret it. This is your only warning. The call ended before they could trace it. They're getting desperate, Vanessa said after a moment of silence, which means we're close. But how deep did this corruption go? Was it isolated to Millfield, or did it extend to state or even federal levels? What would these people be willing to do to protect their power and profits? And how many lives had already been destroyed by their systematic oppression? If you've ever experienced or witnessed racial profiling by police, comment number 1. If you believe corrupt officials should be held accountable regardless of their position, hit that like button, and subscribe to follow Vanessa's fight against a system rigged against her. The conspiracy is bigger than she knows, but can she gather enough evidence before they silence her forever? Vanessa was jolted awake by her phone's urgent buzzing, 17 missed calls, and a flurry of text messages from her team. She switched on the hotel television and immediately understood why. Questions are being raised about FBI Director Vanessa Mitchell's qualifications and conduct, the local news anchor stated with practiced concern. Sources within the Justice Department claim Mitchell may have falsified portions of her resume and benefited from diversity hiring initiatives despite more qualified candidates. The broadcast cut to Officer Snyder, looking polished and sympathetic in civilian clothes. She immediately tried to use her position to intimidate me. I was just doing my job, following standard procedure for traffic violations when she became hostile. Vanessa's phone rang. Deputy Director Garcia. They're going after you hard, Vanessa. Social media is flooded with the hashtag Sankar fake FBI director. We're getting calls from congressional offices demanding answers. It's a coordinated attack, Vanessa replied, scrolling through the barrage of news alerts. They know we're close. There's more. Your mother received threatening calls at the hospital last night. We've arranged protection for her, but this is escalating quickly. A text from Washington appeared. Mayor holding press conference in 30 Min DOJ Special Representative, arriving today to review your conduct. Outside her hotel window, Vanessa could see protesters gathering with "Support our police" and "No political appointments" signs. As she watched, a man in a suit photographed the license plates of FBI vehicles in the parking lot. My security detail reports they've identified 3 different vehicles following our movement since yesterday, Torres informed her when she arrived at the field office. And this was delivered to your hotel room while you were out. The envelope contained a single photo, Vanessa's mother sleeping in her hospital bed, taken from inside the room, with the words "Leave now" scrawled across it. Agent Kim looked up from his computer. I've traced the local news ownership. Parent company is a subsidiary of Harrington Media Group. Classic disinformation playbook, Vanessa said. Discredit the threat, mobilize public opinion against us, create pressure from above, and intimidate from below. Do we back off? Washington asked. Vanessa straightened her jacket. Not a chance. They wouldn't be hitting this hard if we weren't close to something significant. Let's keep pushing. By afternoon, the Department of Justice had sent Special Investigator James Carter to review the conduct of the Millfield operation. Carter's demeanor was coldly professional as he requested access to all their files and evidence. This is highly irregular, Vanessa told him. My team is in the middle of a sensitive corruption investigation. So I've heard, Carter replied. But allegations have been made that require immediate attention. The Attorney General is personally concerned about potential overreach and misconduct. The pressure continued mounting. Congressional representatives from Millfield's district called demanding explanations. The mayor held his press conference expressing grave concerns about federal interference in local policing and calling for an investigation into politically motivated targeting of the department. Through it all, Vanessa maintained her composure, directing her team to secure their evidence and continue building their case. But the walls were closing in, and she wondered how many of her superiors in Washington might already be compromised. They're trying to isolate us, she told her team as day turned to evening. Cut us off from support, turn public opinion against us, and force us to abandon the investigation before we can bring charges. What's our next move? Torres asked. Vanessa's expression was resolute. We continue gathering evidence, but we need to be more careful. They've shown they're willing to threaten family members and manipulate the media. We need to identify all the players in this conspiracy and find their weak points. As if on cue, her secure phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Parking garage level 3, midnight. Come alone, I can help. Could be a trap, Torres warned, or our whistleblower reaching out again, Vanessa countered. Either way, it's a lead we can't ignore. What none of them realized was that the counterattack had only just begun, and their enemies had resources and reach far beyond what they had imagined. The parking garage was eerily silent at midnight. the concrete structure amplifying every small sound. Vanessa positioned Torres as backup at the stairwell, her hand resting near her concealed weapon as she walked to the meeting point. A figure emerged from behind a concrete pillar, Officer Johnson looking nervously over his shoulder. "I'm sorry about coming to you like this," he said quietly, "but they're watching everything." "I appreciate the risk you're taking," Vanessa replied. "What do you have for me?" "There are others in the department who want to help. Good officers. Who've been silenced or threatened." Johnson handed her a flash drive. "This contains evidence linking Chief Reynolds directly to evidence tampering in at least 7 cases involving police brutality. There's also an audio recording you should hear." Vanessa plugged the drive into her secure tablet. The recording played clearly. "Mayor Francis, how quickly can your officers clear out the Oak Street properties?" "Chief Reynolds, give me 2 weeks. We'll increase patrols, make some arrests. The message will get through." Harrington, "Excellent. Remember, we need those buildings empty by the end of the quarter." "Mayor, the rezoning commission won't be a problem. I've taken care of it." "This was recorded last month," Johnson explained. "They're systematically using the police to clear minorities out of neighborhoods Harrington wants to develop." "Why are you helping us?" Vanessa asked directly. Johnson's eyes showed genuine anguish. "I joined the force to protect people. What they're doing, it's not right, but I've got a wife and 2 kids. If they find out I'm talking to you, we can arrange protection," Vanessa assured him. "Witness security program, new identities if necessary." Johnson nodded gratefully. "There's going to be a meeting tonight at the old Harrington warehouse. Reynolds, the mayor, Harrington, all the key players. I'm supposed to provide security, but I could get you access." They worked out details for surveillance, with Johnson providing security codes and building layouts before departing separately. When Vanessa returned to the FBI field office, she found the electronic locks had been changed. Her access card was denied. "Orders from Washington," the security guard informed her awkwardly. "Temporary security protocol." Even more concerning, Deputy Director Garcia wasn't answering her calls, responding only with a text. "Under review. Maintain low profile. Will contact when cleared." Torres met her at a backup location they'd established. "Agent Washington reports our evidence server was remotely accessed 2 hours ago. Several key files are corrupted or missing, and our backup drives have been wiped." "They're moving faster than we anticipated," Vanessa concluded. "Johnson provided information about a meeting tonight at Harrington's warehouse. We'll conduct surveillance ourselves." Without official authorization, Vanessa and Torres established themselves in an observation position near the warehouse later that night. Through binoculars, they watched police cruisers arrive, followed by the mayor's town car and Harrington's Mercedes. "Johnson just arrived," Torres noted, focusing his camera. "He's carrying something, looks like documents." Vanessa zoomed in with her own equipment. "He seems nervous." They watched as Johnson entered the warehouse, shoulders tense. Through directional microphones, they picked up fragments of conversation as the warehouse door briefly opened. 20 minutes later, Vanessa's blood ran cold as she clearly heard Chief Reynolds say, "Johnson came through. He's provided everything Mitchell has on us. With these documents missing from her evidence, we can claim she fabricated her case." "Her career is over," Harrington added. "And if she doesn't back off, we frame her for evidence tampering. I have friends at Justice who'll make sure the charges stick." Vanessa and Torres exchanged shocked looks. "Johnson sold us out," Torres whispered, "or they threatened his family," Vanessa countered. "Either way, we've been compromised." As they carefully withdrew from their position, Torres accidentally knocked over a metal trash can. The resulting clatter echoed in the night air. "Someone's there!" They heard Reynolds shout, followed by the sound of running footsteps. Their escape became a heart-pounding chase through the industrial district, narrowly avoiding search parties by hiding in an abandoned loading dock until the area cleared. When Vanessa finally returned to her hotel room at 3 a.m., she found it completely ransacked. Every drawer emptied, every electronic device missing. Someone had used red lipstick to write on her bathroom mirror, "Go home or go to morgue." The message was clear. The corruption in Millfield ran deeper than she had imagined, reaching into federal agencies and threatening anyone who challenged it. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated her determination. Have you ever stood up against corruption despite personal risk? Comment number 1 if you believe whistleblowers deserve better protection. Like this video if you think justice should apply equally to those in power. And subscribe to see if Vanessa can recover from this devastating betrayal. With her evidence stolen and allies turning against her, what desperate measures will she take to expose the truth before it's too late? The pounding on her hotel room door came at 5:30 a.m. Vanessa, who had barely slept, was already dressed and reviewing what evidence remained on her secure satellite phone. FBI Director Mitchell, this is the Millfield Police Department. We have a warrant for your arrest. Vanessa opened the door to find 6 officers in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Behind them stood Chief Reynolds, a barely concealed smirk on his face. Dr. Vanessa Mitchell, you're under arrest for evidence tampering, obstruction of justice and abuse of power, announced the lead officer, mechanically reading from a card. How you have the right to remain silent. This is absurd, Vanessa stated calmly as they handcuffed her. I demand to speak with the Attorney General immediately. The warrant comes with federal authorization, Reynolds informed her, his voice dripping with false regret. Such a shame to see someone in your position disgrace the badge this way. They paraded her through the hotel lobby, where, coincidentally, several news cameras were already set up. Flashbulbs exploded as she was escorted to a waiting police cruiser, her FBI credentials and phone confiscated. Agent Torres attempted to intervene. This is a federal officer. You have no jurisdiction. Step back, Agent, Reynolds warned, unless you want to join her on charges of interfering with an arrest. Vanessa caught Torres's eye and gave a subtle shake of her head. They needed someone on the outside. Instead of being taken to the federal building, Vanessa found herself processed at the county jail, a clear protocol violation for a federal official. The booking officers made no attempt to hide their hostility, roughly taking her fingerprints and making her wait hours for each step of the process. Paperwork seems to be missing, one officer commented with exaggerated concern when she requested her phone call. Systems running slow today. She was placed in general population despite clear regulations requiring separate accommodation for federal officers. Her cell was deliberately uncomfortable lights that wouldn't turn off, a constantly flushing toilet, mysterious maintenance issues, with the air conditioning that left the temperature fluctuating between too hot and too cold. Other inmates gave her a wide berth, and Vanessa overheard a correctional officer warning them, "That one's trouble. Best stay clear if you want your parole hearing to go smooth." Isolated and vulnerable, Vanessa maintained her composure, mentally documenting every violation of procedure for future legal action. A young female guard, making her rounds late that night, paused at her cell. "My brother was arrested last year," she whispered. "Resisting arrest, they said, but his dashcam showed different. Case disappeared from the system." She slipped a folded note through the bars before continuing her rounds. The note was simple. "They're setting you up." Reynolds replaced evidence in police lockup, hearing scheduled with Judge Henderson tomorrow. It was 18 hours before Vanessa was finally allowed her phone call. She dialed a number from memory. "Lawrence," answered a gruff voice. "It's Mitchell. I'm in a situation." Former FBI Director William Lawrence had been her mentor for 20 years. His sharp intake of breath told her he was already aware of what was happening. "Vanessa, they're saying you planted evidence, falsified reports. It's all over the news. It's a frame job, Bill. Millfield PD is corrupt from top to bottom, connected to real estate developer Victor Harrington. They're using police to drive minorities out of neighborhoods for development deals." "I believe you. They've suspended you pending investigation. Garcia is being pressured to denounce you publicly. I need help from outside the system. They've compromised official channels. I'll make calls. There are still people we can trust. Your bail hearing. Tomorrow, local judge named Henderson." Lawrence's tone darkened. "Henderson's in their pocket. Country club member with the mayor and half the town council." Their time ran out before she could respond further. As guards led her back to her cell, Vanessa passed a television in the common area. The headline scrolling across the bottom froze her blood. FBI Director suspended pending investigation into evidence tampering, less than 24 hours after her Arrest, her career was being systematically dismantled. The next morning, her fears about Judge Henderson proved accurate. Despite having no criminal record, significant community ties and no flight risk, her bail was denied. Given the serious nature of these charges and the potential for interference with an ongoing investigation, the court remands the defendant to custody, Henderson declared without making eye contact. As she was led back to her cell, Vanessa caught sight of Officer Johnson standing in the courthouse corridor. Their eyes met briefly, his filled with shame, hers with understanding. Whatever his reasons for betrayal, she knew the decision hadn't come easily. The system she had dedicated her life to upholding was now being weaponized against her. But systems were made of people, and people could be reached. Somewhere in Millfield, there were others like the young guard who had slipped her the note, people who recognized injustice and wanted change. Vanessa would need to find them all if she hoped to survive what was coming next. While Vanessa endured her third day in county lockup, Agent Torres had established a makeshift command center in a run-down motel on the outskirts of Millfield. Using burner phones and cash-purchased laptops, her loyal team operated without official authorization, risking their careers to continue the investigation. "Access granted," Dr. Kim announced, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm in the Millfield PD server. They've improved security, but not enough." Agent Washington entered with takeout coffee. "The community is mobilizing. I've spoken with local civil rights leaders, church groups, and neighborhood associations. They're organizing protests at the courthouse tomorrow." "Vanessa's mother is speaking out despite the threats," Torres added. "Local media wouldn't cover it, but she recorded a video statement that's going viral on social media." As they worked, the narrative began shifting nationally. Major networks were questioning the suspicious timing of the charges against Vanessa. Civil rights organizations issued statements demanding federal intervention and independent investigation. The Congressional Black Caucus called for emergency oversight hearings. Former FBI Director Lawrence had activated his own network of retired agents, creating a shadow support system that operated outside official channels. These veterans used their connections to source information, apply pressure where needed, and protect witnesses willing to come forward. Inside the jail, Vanessa methodically documented every violation of procedure and prisoner rights. She observed how corrections officers treated other detainees, building a comprehensive picture of systematic abuses. Several women began sharing their own stories of police misconduct after realizing who she was. "They planted drugs in my apartment. After I filed a complaint," one woman confided, "Officer Ramirez pulled me over every week for a month, always searching my car, asking for my number." Guard Sandra Cooper had become Vanessa's covert ally, passing information during her shifts. "There's talk among the officers," she whispered during a meal delivery. "They're planning to stage an incident in your block tomorrow, something to justify moving you to isolation." Outside, Torres made a critical discovery while surveilling Harrington's office. "They're planning a major development announcement next week. Luxury condos in the Oak Street district, historically black neighborhood since the 1940s. Kim followed the electronic trail. "Department of Justice investigator James Carter arrived yesterday. I've been researching him. His brother-in-law sits on Harrington's corporate board." "Can you access his communications?" Torres asked. "Already did," Kim replied, turning his screen. "Email from Carter to Mayor Francis yesterday. Situation contained. Mitchell's evidence compromised. Proceed as discussed." Despite the setbacks, they were steadily rebuilding their evidence chain. Anonymous sources began coming forward: city employees, a court clerk, 2 patrol officers. Each provided small pieces of the larger puzzle. "Someone delivered this to the network affiliate in Nashville," Washington said, holding up a flash drive. "Security camera footage from inside the police station showing Reynolds and the evidence room supervisor replacing files after Vanessa's arrest." The most promising development came when 3 officers from neighboring jurisdictions contacted Lawrence, offering testimony about cases that had been transferred from Millfield and subsequently buried. "The cracks are showing," Torres told the team. "Lower-level players are getting nervous, looking for immunity deals before everything collapses." Inside the jail, Vanessa was awakened by Cooper during a late-night shift. "They're moving you tomorrow," she warned. "Transport to courthouse for an unscheduled hearing." "But something's wrong. They've assigned officers Kramer and Diaz. They're Reynolds' enforcers." "A trap," Vanessa concluded. "They need me to disappear before the pressure builds further." Cooper nodded grimly. "I've heard things. A tragic accident. During prisoner transport, they've done it before. I need to get a message out," Vanessa said urgently. "Already taken care of," Cooper replied, revealing a tiny transmitter. "Your agent Torres gave me this. They'll be tracking the transport." "Fun." The following morning, Vanessa was handcuffed and placed in a prisoner transport van with Officer Kramer, driving and Diaz riding shotgun. No other prisoners were loaded, another protocol violation that confirmed her suspicions. Hearing got moved. "To the federal building," Kramer announced casually as they pulled away from the jail. Vanessa noted they were heading in the opposite direction from the federal building. The pieces were falling into place for a deadly setup. "Have you ever witnessed a broken system protect itself at any cost?" Comment number 1. If you believe there are good people, even in corrupt organizations, like and subscribe if you want to. See justice triumph over systemic oppression. What desperate measure will Vanessa take as she's driven toward what could be her execution? Can the resistance mobilize in time to save her from this deadly trap? The transport van took a sharp turn onto an industrial access road, moving away from any courthouse or official building. Vanessa tensed as the urban landscape gave way to abandoned warehouses and overgrown lots. "This isn't the way to the federal building," she observed calmly. "Route change," Officer Kramer replied without turning. "Security precaution." Officer Diaz kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, his nervous energy palpable. "Just following orders. Nothing personal." The van slowed as it approached a derelict manufacturing plant, its broken windows and graffiti-covered walls creating a perfect, isolated setting. "No witnesses, no cameras, no help. Why are we stopping here?" Vanessa demanded, though she already knew the answer. "Mechanical issue," Kramer said flatly, putting the van in park. "Step out of the vehicle. I'll remain inside until proper transport." "Arrives," Vanessa countered. Diaz drew his weapon. "This isn't negotiable. Out now." With limited options, Vanessa complied, her handcuffed wrists making her vulnerable as they led her toward the abandoned building. The setup was becoming clear. She would reportedly attempt escape, forcing the officers to use lethal force. Another unfortunate incident in the Millfield Police Department's history. As they entered the building, Vanessa assessed her surroundings, looking for any opportunity. Years of FBI tactical training had prepared her for situations like this, but the handcuffs severely limited her options. "Over there," Kramer directed, pointing to a back room. "Move." As they reached the doorway, Vanessa made her decision. Using the doorframe as leverage, she swung her body backward, driving her elbow into Kramer's solar plexus with all her strength. The officer doubled over, gasping for breath. Diaz raised his weapon but hesitated, a split-second delay that proved critical. In that moment, he seemed unable to follow through with the execution. Vanessa used the opportunity to sweep Kramer's legs from under him, sending him crashing to the floor. As she moved to disarm him, Diaz suddenly shifted his aim toward his partner. "Freeze, federal agent," Diaz shouted, his voice transformed from uncertain to commanding. Kramer looked up in confusion. "What the hell, Diaz?" "Special Agent Davis." "FBI, Diaz, now Davis," announced, producing a hidden key to unlock Vanessa's handcuffs. "Director, we need to move now. Extraction team is 3 minutes out." "Lawrence sent you," Vanessa realized as she secured Kramer with his own handcuffs. "Undercover for 6 weeks," Davis confirmed. "We suspected they'd try something like this. The van is being tracked, but backup may not." The sound of approaching vehicles cut him short. Through the broken windows, they spotted 3 police cruisers racing toward the building. "We need to go," Davis urged, leading her toward a back exit. "There's a secondary vehicle hidden behind the east loading dock." As they fled through the decaying structure, a helicopter appeared overhead, its spotlight sweeping the area. "Police." "Chopper," Davis warned. "They're going all in." They reached Davis's concealed vehicle just as the first officers entered the building. The engine roared to life as bullets shattered the rear windshield. Davis hunched over the wheel, blood suddenly staining his shoulder. "You're hit," Vanessa observed, grabbing the wheel with one hand while applying pressure to his wound with the other. "I'll manage," Davis grimaced, accelerating down a service road as police vehicles gave chase. The helicopter tracked them from above, its spotlight making them an easy target as more patrol cars joined the pursuit. Davis executed a series of evasive maneuvers, using his tactical driving training to maintain distance from their pursuers. "Media's already reporting it," he informed her, gesturing to the police radio. "They're saying an escaped prisoner shot a federal agent and stole a vehicle." "Reynolds is controlling the narrative," Vanessa noted grimly. "We need to get you medical attention." Davis's condition was deteriorating, his skin growing pale as blood soaked his shirt. Despite this, he continued driving with remarkable skill, using back alleys and service roads to evade roadblocks being established throughout the city. "Safe house 2 miles ahead," he managed through gritted teeth. "Medical supplies there." They were approaching the location when a police sniper positioned on a rooftop fired, blowing out their front tire. The car spun wildly before Davis somehow regained control, but their mobility was severely compromised. "We need to split up," Davis insisted as they limped the vehicle into an abandoned garage. "You're the priority. I'll create a diversion." "Not happening," Vanessa countered, helping him from the vehicle. "We move together." Before they could argue further, headlights swept across the garage entrance. They retreated deeper into the shadows as multiple vehicles surrounded the building. "There's another exit," Davis whispered, indicating a utility door. "On my signal, run for that door and don't stop." Vanessa assessed his injury. "You won't make it." "I'm already down," he replied grimly. "Make my sacrifice count." Before she could protest, Davis fired his weapon toward the main entrance, drawing immediate return fire as he rolled behind a concrete pillar. The distraction worked, all attention focused on his position as Vanessa slipped toward the utility door. She paused at the threshold, looking back to see Davis still exchanging fire despite his worsening condition. Their eyes met briefly across the garage, a moment of profound professional respect before she disappeared into the night. Behind her, the sounds of gunfire intensified, then abruptly ceased. The radio chatter she overheard minutes later confirmed her fears. "Suspect down. Officer injured." They were claiming she had shot Davis and escaped. Within hours, the narrative was being broadcast nationwide. Manhunt underway for escaped prisoner Vanessa Mitchell, former FBI director gone rogue. Authorities warn she is armed and extremely dangerous after shooting a federal agent during an escape attempt. Businessman Victor Harrington appeared on local news offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to her capture. Mayor Francis declared a state of emergency, authorizing checkpoints throughout Millfield. Chief Reynolds held a solemn press conference vowing to bring this dangerous criminal to justice. Vanessa, wounded and alone, moved through the darkness, like a ghost, evading search teams and helicopter sweeps. The organization she had dedicated her life to now painted her as a cop killer. Every law enforcement officer in the region was hunting her, while the truly dangerous criminals controlled the system from behind a shield of respectability. As dawn approached, she realized she had become separated from Davis in the chaos. She had no way of knowing if he had survived or fallen into enemy hands. Her secure communications were compromised, her allies scattered or under surveillance. She was truly on her own, injured and hunted, with the resources of multiple agencies deployed against her. But they had made a critical miscalculation. They had backed her into a corner, stripped away her official power, and forced her to become exactly what they feared most, an agent with nothing left to lose and the skills to bring down their entire operation. The abandoned church basement had been forgotten by most of Millfield's residents, its Gothic architecture overshadowed by modern developments. For Vanessa, the dusty space beneath century-old wooden pews had become a temporary sanctuary. Using first aid supplies from an emergency kit, she had treated her wounds and changed into clothes left by Agent Torres through their prearranged contingency protocol. Encrypted communications arrived via a modified handheld device Kim had created for worst-case scenarios. Secure channel established, The screen displayed before Torres's message appeared. Public narrative: you shot Davis, escaped custody. Davis alive, secure location, condition stable. Team maintaining cover while surveilled. Extraction options: limited. New identity package available at Gunpoint Alpha. Vanessa acknowledged receipt and reviewed the contents of the package Torres had left. Driver's license, credit cards, and cash under the name Catherine Wells, along with a basic disguise kit. The national media coverage was relentless. White. House Press Secretary expressed deep concern about the unprecedented situation and promised full resources to resolve this matter quickly. Law enforcement officials described her as desperate and dangerous, yet beneath the official narrative, resistance was growing. Social media campaigns with hashtags like #TruthForVanessa and Millfield corruption gained traction despite apparent suppression efforts. Former Director Lawrence testified before a hastily assembled congressional committee, questioning the suspicious timing and circumstances of the charges against her. "I've known Dr. Mitchell for 20 years, he stated firmly. The suggestion that she would falsify evidence or attack a federal agent is not only preposterous, it's a transparent attempt to silence her investigation. Meanwhile, Agent Davis's condition remained guarded but stable in a secure medical facility outside Millfield. His body camera footage, automatically uploaded to FBI servers before the confrontation, provided crucial evidence contradicting the official police narrative of the transport incident. This partial vindication did little to ease Vanessa's immediate predicament. Chief Reynolds had doubled police presence throughout Millfield, with particular focus on predominantly black neighborhoods. Residents reported increasing harassment, random searches, and intimidation tactics. "They're stopping everyone who remotely matches your description," Torres reported. Multiple residents arrested on minor or fabricated charges. Community leaders organizing support for Vanessa found themselves targeted with sudden tax audits, traffic stops, or arrests on forgotten outstanding warrants. The message was clear: support Vanessa Mitchell at your own risk. For 6 days, Vanessa moved between safe houses established by a network of local activists. A close call at a police checkpoint nearly ended her freedom when an officer became suspicious of her disguise. An elderly couple in a passing car created a distraction, claiming a medical emergency that drew the officer's attention away at the critical moment. "My grandson was arrested last year," the woman whispered as they drove Vanessa to safety. "No charges, but lost his job anyway. We know what they're doing in this town." The danger extended to her team as well. Agent Washington's parents received threatening phone calls. Dr. Kim discovered surveillance malware attempting to penetrate their communication network. "They're using an algorithm to identify potential supporters," Kim explained during a secure call. "Social media activity, purchasing patterns, even church attendance. Anyone they flag gets extra police attention." "They're turning Millfield into a police state," Torres observed, "but it's bringing more whistleblowers forward. People are seeing the true face of Reynolds' department." The most disturbing news came 3 days later. Officer Johnson, their original whistleblower who had betrayed them under pressure, was found dead in his home. An apparent suicide, with a typed note confessing to evidence tampering and corruption. "This wasn't suicide," Vanessa stated after reviewing the police report Torres had obtained. "Johnson was right-handed. The gunshot residue patterns are inconsistent with self-infliction. Before he died, Johnson told his sister he'd hidden something at his late father's fishing cabin," Torres revealed. "She didn't know what he meant, but passed the message to our community contacts." That information led to Vanessa's most dangerous mission yet, retrieving a flash drive hidden in the police property room. Using access codes provided by their growing network of sympathizers, she infiltrated the department during shift change, disguised as a cleaning contractor. The flash drive contained explosive evidence, GPS tracking data from patrol cars showing systematic harassment patterns in neighborhoods Harrington intended to develop, body cam footage that had supposedly been corrupted, showing excessive force, and most significantly, internal communications discussing the deliberate targeting of community activists. While Vanessa operated in the shadows, Harrington's development plans accelerated. Construction crews began demolishing buildings despite residents' complaints about missing permits and inadequate notifications. The most shocking development came when excavation at one site uncovered human remains. Work halted briefly before resuming under police supervision, with the area cordoned off and records immediately sealed. An anonymous worker contacted Washington's community network, reporting multiple sets of remains that appeared to be decades old. They found at least 7 bodies, the worker claimed. Looked like they'd been there since the 60s or 70s. Harrington was on site within minutes, talking with Reynolds. Next thing we know, we're all signing NDAs and threatened with obstruction charges if we speak about it. This discovery potentially connected modern corruption to historical racial violence, a connection that could explain the desperate efforts to stop Vanessa's investigation. If Harrington's family wealth was built on land seized through violence against the black community, and if the local power structure had been protecting those secrets for generations, the stakes extended far beyond current development deals. Have you noticed how systems protect themselves when threatened? Comment. Number 1. If you believe truth eventually surfaces despite powerful opposition, like this video if you've ever witnessed community solidarity against injustice, and subscribe to follow Vanessa's most dangerous mission yet. Can she decode Johnson's final message before Reynolds discovers her hiding place? And what dark history lies buried beneath Millfield's seemingly peaceful streets? In a dimly lit storage unit on the outskirts of Millfield, Vanessa methodically arranged evidence across a makeshift workspace. Johnson's final gift, the flash drive containing encrypted files, had taken Dr. Kim 3 days to fully decode. What emerged was far more significant than they had anticipated. Johnson was more thorough than we realized, Vanessa told Torres via secure communication. He's been documenting corruption for years, waiting for someone he could trust. The files revealed a multi-generational conspiracy stretching back to the 1960s. The Harrington family's rise to prominence began with Victor's grandfather, who acquired large tracts of land in historically black neighborhoods during the civil rights era. Police records from that period showed a pattern of harassment, arrests, and unexplained disappearances of black business owners and homeowners who refused to sell. The mass grave site makes sense now, Torres noted grimly. Those who resisted most strongly simply vanished. Modern financial records showed the corruption continuing uninterrupted. Judge Henderson maintained offshore accounts receiving regular payments through shell companies tied to Harrington Enterprises. Mayor Francis, deeply in debt from gambling problems, had become financially dependent on Harrington's generosity. Chief Reynolds had been systematically promoted and protected, despite numerous misconduct incidents, because of his willingness to deploy police resources to serve Harrington's interests. Most disturbing was evidence of federal involvement. Photos documented DOJ investigator Carter meeting privately with Harrington weeks before Vanessa's arrest. Financial records revealed that Deputy Director Garcia's brother had mysteriously received a full scholarship to an exclusive private university from a Harrington family foundation. This isn't just about gentrification or local corruption, Vanessa concluded. It's about covering up historical crimes that would undermine the legitimacy of Harrington's entire empire. If those land transfers were the result of violence and intimidation, potentially hundreds of millions in assets could be subject to legal claims. As they assembled the complete picture, national media began questioning the official narrative more aggressively. Video fragments from Davis's body camera had leaked, showing Kramer forcing Vanessa toward the abandoned building at gunpoint. Public opinion was shifting as more inconsistencies emerged in the police account. Agent Torres nearly walked into a trap while delivering evidence backups to Lawrence. A coordinated police operation targeted the meeting location minutes after it had been mentioned on a supposedly secure line. They're monitoring all communications, Kim warned after analyzing the breach. Even our encrypted channels may be compromised. The stakes escalated further when Millfield residents, fed up with intensifying police harassment, organized the largest protest in the city's history. Over 2,000 people surrounded City Hall, demanding an independent investigation into police practices and Vanessa's allegations. Chief Reynolds responded with riot gear, tear gas, and mass arrests. Heavy-handed tactics that only generated more damaging footage and further undermined public trust. Watching these developments from hiding, Vanessa made her decision. We have enough evidence now. It's time to bring this into the light. She recorded a comprehensive video testimony, methodically presenting the evidence with clear explanations of its significance. The video was uploaded to a secure server with a dead man's switch. If she failed to enter a code every 24 hours, it would automatically release to multiple media outlets and federal agencies. The final phase is the most dangerous, she told her team. I'm going to surrender on my own terms. That's too risky, Torres objected. We can extract you, get you to Washington. Running makes me look guilty, Vanessa countered. And this isn't just about clearing my name anymore. This is about justice for decades of victims. I need to face them directly. Her plan was simple in concept, but extraordinarily dangerous in execution. She would walk directly into Millfield Police Headquarters during shift change, when the maximum number of officers would witness her arrival. She would demand a meeting with the principal conspirators, present her evidence, and force a confrontation that couldn't be hidden or denied. We'll have teams in position, Lawrence assured her. FBI tactical units from 3 field offices are standing by, operating off official channels. At the first sign of danger, they'll move in. The morning of her surrender dawned clear and cold. Vanessa dressed with deliberate care in her formal FBI attire, the symbolic power of the uniform not lost on her. The badge she had earned through decades of service would be her shield one final time. All teams in position, Torres confirmed. Satellite coverage active. Media alerted to possible development at police headquarters. If this goes wrong, Vanessa said quietly, make sure my mother gets the full file. She'll know what to do with it. At precisely 7:30 a.m., when day shift and night shift officers would be transitioning, Vanessa Mitchell walked through the front doors of Millfield Police Headquarters. The reaction was immediate, stunned silence followed by frantic activity, as officers recognized the nation's most wanted fugitive, standing calmly in their lobby. I'm here to speak with Chief Reynolds, she announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. And I believe Mayor Francis and Mr. Harrington will want to join us. The police station erupted into controlled chaos. Officers drew weapons, shouting contradictory orders, clearly unprepared for Vanessa's brazen appearance. She remained perfectly still, hands visible, expression composed. I am unarmed, she stated calmly, and I'm not here to create a scene. I'm here to resolve this situation properly. The desk sergeant, visibly shaken, reached for his radio. Chief, you need to get down here right now. Mitchell just walked in. Vanessa was quickly surrounded, handcuffed, and escorted to an interview. Room under heavy guard. Word spread rapidly throughout the department. Within 20 minutes, Chief Reynolds arrived, his face flushed with a mixture of anger and disbelief. What kind of game are you playing, Mitchell? He demanded, closing the door behind him. No game, Chief. I'm here to end this cleanly. Her tone was professional, almost sympathetic. Mayor Francis and Victor Harrington should join us. What I have to say concerns all of you, Reynolds scoffed. You're in no position to make demands. This isn't a demand, it's an opportunity. Your last one, actually. Vanessa leaned forward slightly. Interesting development at the Oak Street construction site. Those remains they found. I know exactly who they belonged to, and why they were buried there. The color drained from Reynolds's face. He left without another word. 30 minutes later, Vanessa sat at a conference table facing the 3 men who had orchestrated her downfall. Mayor Francis looked physically ill, his usual confidence entirely absent. Harrington maintained his corporate composure, though a muscle twitched periodically in his jaw. Reynolds alternated between false bravado and visible anxiety. What none of them realized was that Vanessa had activated a hidden transmitter. Every word was being broadcast to multiple agencies and recorded for posterity. Gentlemen, she began, placing a folder on the table. I want to thank you for this meeting. It saves us all a great deal of time. You've put us in a difficult position. Director Mitchell, Harrington responded smoothly. But I believe we can reach a mutually beneficial resolution. I'm listening, Vanessa replied. These allegations, while troubling, are fundamentally unprovable, Harrington continued. However, to avoid protracted legal proceedings that benefit nobody, I'm prepared to establish a community development fund. $10 million for infrastructure improvements in affected neighborhoods, in exchange for your resignation, a public statement acknowledging investigative overreach, and the surrender of all alleged evidence you've gathered. Mayor Francis nodded eagerly. We can frame it as a misunderstanding. No charges, full pension, everyone moves on. Vanessa smiled slightly. That's a generous offer, but I'm afraid you misunderstand my position. She opened the folder, spreading photographs across the table. These were taken in 1968. 12 black business owners who refused to sell their properties to Harrington Developments, all reported missing within a 6-month period. She laid out more documents. Police reports filed by family members, each investigation assigned to officers with direct financial connections to the Harrington family. Each case closed within days without meaningful investigation. Reynolds shifted uncomfortably as Vanessa continued. The remains discovered last week match the approximate number and characteristics of these missing persons. DNA testing will confirm their identities. And when it does, decades of land transfers, property developments, and wealth accumulation become fruits of a poisoned tree. This is ancient history, Harrington dismissed, though his confidence was visibly wavering. Statute of limitations doesn't apply to murder, Vanessa interjected, or to ongoing criminal conspiracy. Which brings us to Officer Johnson. She produced an audio recording device. Johnson's voice filled the room. Chief Reynolds told me directly, either I provide Mitchell's evidence files or my family would suffer consequences. When I asked what that meant, he said, accidents happen every day. The recording continued, capturing a planning meeting for the transport incident that was intended to end with Vanessa's death. Reynolds suddenly stood. This meeting is over. You're under arrest. For what crime specifically? Vanessa asked calmly. The falsified charges have already been undermined by Agent Davis's recovery and testimony. The alleged escape attempt has been disproven by body camera footage. You're quickly running out of options, Chief. As if on cue, Harrington's phone rang. His face darkened as he listened to the caller. What do you mean, federal agents? Who authorized? He fell silent, listening. We have a situation, he informed the others after hanging up. FBI tactical teams have surrounded the building. Impossible, Reynolds sputtered. I would have been notified. Not if they're operating. Han Independent Authority, Vanessa explained. Which they are. And at this moment, everything we're saying is being transmitted to the Attorney General, the FBI Director Pro Tem, and several news organizations. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Mayor Francis clutched his chest, his breathing becoming rapid and shallow. You can't. This will destroy everything. Not everything, Vanessa corrected, just the corrupt foundation you've built upon. Millfield can survive and thrive without exploitation and intimidation. Harrington, ever the pragmatist, quickly recalculated his position. What are your terms? No terms, no deals. Full prosecution under the law. Reynolds, sensing the collapse of their position, made a desperate move. He drew his weapon, pointing it directly at Vanessa. Nobody's going anywhere. This ends now. The room froze in a deadly tableau. Harrington and Francis pressed back against the wall, as far from the line of fire as possible. Reynolds' hand trembled slightly, sweat beading on his forehead. Think carefully about your next action, Chief, Vanessa advised, her voice steady, despite the gun aimed at her heart. Killing a federal officer in a room full of witnesses while federal agents surround the building, that's not a survivable decision. She's right, Reynolds, Harrington urged. Put it down. We'll fight this legally. We still have connections. The standoff stretched for excruciating seconds. Mayor Francis suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed into a chair, gasping for breath, a panic attack overwhelming him amid the stress. The distraction was enough. The conference room door burst open as FBI tactical officers flooded in, weapons trained on Reynolds. He hesitated for a critical moment, then slowly placed his gun on the table, raising his hands in surrender. Chief William Reynolds, Victor. Harrington, Mayor Joseph Francis, Vanessa announced formally. You are under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, attempted murder of a federal officer, and accessory to multiple historical homicides. As they were led away in handcuffs, the symbolic reversal of Vanessa's own public humiliation was not lost on the officers witnessing the scene. The same media cameras that had captured her walk of shame now documented the architects of corruption. Being escorted to waiting federal vehicles, justice had begun its slow, inexorable process of restoration. 6 weeks after the dramatic arrests at Millfield Police Headquarters, Vanessa stood at a podium, addressing a room full of journalists. Fully reinstated as FBI director, the investigation that had nearly cost her life had expanded into the largest police corruption case in recent history. Today, the Department of Justice is announcing formal charges against 47 current and former Millfield Police Department officers, she stated. Additionally, 18 local officials and 6 federal employees have been indicted for their roles in this conspiracy. The fallout had been swift and extensive. Deputy Director Garcia had resigned in disgrace after evidence emerged of his role in suppressing Vanessa's investigation. Department of Justice investigator Carter faced criminal charges for evidence tampering and conspiracy. The systematic review of the police department had uncovered over 200 cases of evidence manipulation, false arrests, and civil rights violations spanning more than a decade. A team of prosecutors worked through case files, identifying wrongfully convicted individuals for immediate release. Officer Snyder, whose traffic stop had inadvertently triggered the entire investigation, negotiated a plea deal in exchange for comprehensive testimony about departmental practices. His detailed account of training sessions, where officers were instructed on how to target minority residents without leaving evidence of discrimination, proved particularly damaging. Despite these victories, significant resistance remained. The police union publicly questioned the legitimacy of the investigation. Conservative media outlets portrayed the case as federal overreach and anti-police bias. Several judges initially refused to recognize evidence from the corruption probe, necessitating appeals to higher courts. Threats against witnesses and cooperating officers became so common that a special protection unit was established. Vanessa herself required a full security detail, with multiple credible death threats traced to white supremacist groups, angered by her dismantling of what they viewed as appropriate policing. Congressional hearings brought national attention to the Millfield situation. Residents testified about decades of harassment, intimidation, and discrimination. Families of individuals who had disappeared in the 1960s finally received acknowledgement of their losses as forensic teams worked to identify the remains found at the construction site. The investigation into Harrington's empire revealed financial connections to prominent politicians across multiple states. The money trail exposed how seemingly legitimate businesses had been used to launder proceeds from land seized through intimidation and violence. The historical scope of this case is unprecedented, Vanessa explained during a press briefing. We're seeing how corruption becomes institutionalized across generations, with modern officials often unaware they're perpetuating systems established through violence decades earlier. Internal resistance within the FBI itself presented another challenge. Traditional elements within the Bureau questioned Vanessa's methods and the resources devoted to historical cases. The Attorney General's appointment of a special prosecutor had helped overcome some bureaucratic obstacles, but institutional inertia remained a constant barrier. Perhaps the most significant discovery came from the Millfield courthouse basement, where county archivists located property deeds from the 1960s, showing how land had been systematically transferred from black owners to Harrington-controlled entities following arrests, disappearances, or sudden relocations. These documents provided the legal foundation for restitution claims by descendants of the original owners. This isn't just about punishing wrongdoing, Vanessa emphasized in her congressional testimony. It's about restoring what was wrongfully taken. True justice requires not only accountability, but reparation. The task force she established began examining similar patterns in other departments nationwide, identifying jurisdictions where statistical anomalies suggested potential systematic discrimination. What had begun as a single investigation was evolving into a national reckoning with policing practices. For residents of Millfield, the changes were both immediate and profound. The police department operated under a federal consent decree, with community oversight boards given actual enforcement authority. Training programs were completely redesigned, with emphasis on de-escalation and recognition of implicit bias. Yet Vanessa remained acutely aware that institutional change moved slowly, often meeting determined resistance at every step. Some conspirators employed sophisticated legal strategies to delay proceedings, while others leveraged political connections to seek preferential treatment. "This work requires persistence," she told her team during a strategy session. "The systems we're challenging have had decades to entrench themselves. They won't be dismantled overnight." As summer turned to fall, the first criminal trials began. The evidence presented shocked even those who had followed the case closely. Body cam footage showed officers planting evidence, discussing racial targeting, and coordinating harassment campaigns against specific neighborhoods. Internal communications documented explicit strategies for using minor violations to drive down property values in areas Harrington wished to develop. In a particularly damning email, Chief Reynolds had written to Mayor Francis, "Another month of concentrated enforcement should clear out the remaining holdouts on Cedar Street. Harrington can proceed with acquisition by November." While the legal proceedings moved forward, Vanessa focused increasingly on the human impact of these practices. She met with families torn apart by wrongful convictions, businesses destroyed by selective enforcement, and communities fractured by decades of police intimidation. "The statistics and evidence are important," she noted during a community forum, "but we must never lose sight of the individual lives affected by these practices. Each case represents a person whose rights and dignity were violated by those sworn to protect them." The path toward justice remained long and uncertain, but the first crucial steps had been taken. A system that had operated in shadows for generations had been exposed to light. Those who had believed themselves untouchable now faced the consequences of their actions, and communities long silenced had finally found their voice. 6 months after the arrests that had rocked Millfield to its foundation, Vanessa stood at a podium before the newest class of FBI Academy graduates. Her presence carried a different weight now. She was not just their director, but a living embodiment of the principles they had sworn to uphold. "When I entered this profession," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed auditorium, "I believed that justice was a straightforward pursuit. Follow the evidence, apply the law, protect the innocent. What I've learned through personal experience is that justice is also a constant struggle against systems designed to protect power rather than truth." The graduate sat in rapt attention as she recounted her journey through the crucible of Millfield, from routine traffic stop to fighting for her life as a fugitive, to the final confrontation that had exposed decades of corruption. "The badge you received today represents an ideal, not a reality," she continued. "The reality is something we must build together, every day, through difficult choices and personal courage." Under her leadership, the FBI had established a new civil rights division specifically tasked with investigating systematic discrimination in law enforcement agencies. Agent Torres, promoted to assistant director, oversaw the division with a team of specialists trained to identify patterns of abuse that often remained hidden in plain sight. The Millfield Police Department, operating under federal consent decree, had become an unexpected model for reform. Community oversight boards with actual disciplinary authority reviewed all use of force incidents. Body cameras couldn't be deactivated during encounters. Officer Washington, who had left the FBI to serve as Community Relations Director, implemented training programs that emphasized de-escalation and cultural competence. Dr. Kim had developed an algorithm that analyzed departmental data for signs of discriminatory patterns, a technology now being implemented in police departments nationwide. The system flagged statistical anomalies that might indicate targeting of specific communities, creating an early warning system for potential civil rights violations. For the residents of Millfield, tangible changes were finally becoming reality. A historic settlement provided compensation for decades of harassment and wrongful arrests. Properties seized through intimidation were being returned to the descendants of original owners where possible. Harrington's assets, frozen during legal proceedings, had been redirected toward community development programs in the neighborhoods, most damaged by his practices. The criminal cases continued moving through the courts with mixed results. Officer Snyder served a reduced sentence in exchange for his comprehensive testimony against department leadership. Chief Reynolds and Mayor Francis faced decades in prison after their convictions on multiple federal charges. Harrington's legal team had managed to delay his trial through procedural maneuvers, but the evidence against him continued mounting as more witnesses came forward. On a personal level, Vanessa found both healing and purpose in the aftermath. Her mother had recovered, sufficiently to attend a ceremony dedicating the new community center named in Officer Johnson's honor. Despite his complicated role in the investigation, Johnson's final actions had helped expose the truth, and his family found some comfort in knowing his death had ultimately served justice. The national conversation around policing had evolved significantly, with the Millfield case referenced in policy discussions across the country. The Millfield Standards became shorthand for a set of reforms aimed at preventing similar abuses of power. A police reform bill, bearing the city's name, had passed the House and awaited Senate consideration. Yet Vanessa remained acutely aware of the fragility of progress. During private moments with her team, she acknowledged the ongoing challenges they faced. "The work is just beginning," she reminded them during a strategy session. "We've exposed one network of corruption, but similar patterns exist in countless jurisdictions, and there are powerful interests invested in maintaining the status quo." Indeed, she continued to receive death threats from those who viewed her as a threat to their conception of order. Far-right media painted her as an enemy of law enforcement rather than a champion of its highest ideals. Some of the conspirators, who had escaped prosecution due to technical issues or statutes of limitations, continued wielding influence from the shadows. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Vanessa returned to the site of her original traffic stop, now transformed into a small memorial park honoring victims of police violence. She placed flowers at the central plaque, which bore the names of those whose remains had been discovered at the construction site, individuals whose disappearances had gone uninvestigated for over 50 years. A young officer approached respectfully. "Director Mitchell, I just wanted to say thank you. I joined the force to help people, not to intimidate them. What you did here, it's giving us a chance to be the department this community deserves." Vanessa nodded, recognizing the sincerity in his eyes. "The systems we inherit aren't our fault, but changing them is our responsibility." As she prepared to leave, she noticed families gathering in the park, children playing without fear, community members engaging with officers in conversation rather than confrontation. Small changes, perhaps, but significant ones in a city where police had long been viewed as an occupying force rather than public servants. Her mother's words from childhood echoed in her mind. Truth has a power all its own. That power had nearly cost Vanessa her life, but it had also transformed a community and sparked a national reckoning. The road ahead remained long and uncertain, but for the first time in generations, it led toward justice rather than away from it. Standing at the intersection where Officer Snyder had once held her at gunpoint, Vanessa looked toward the horizon. New challenges awaited, other departments to investigate, systems to reform, resistance to overcome. But she faced them now with strengthened purpose and the knowledge that change, however difficult, was possible. The light would always, eventually, expose the darkness. Justice required vigilance, courage, and the willingness to stand alone when necessary. As she placed a final flower at the memorial, Vanessa silently renewed her commitment to that principle, not just for Millfield, but for every community, where power had been weaponized against the vulnerable. The traffic stop that had nearly destroyed her had instead become the catalyst for her most important work. From moment of crisis to moment of purpose, the circle was complete. Yet the larger struggle continued, with each victory opening the door to new challenges, each reform revealing deeper injustices requiring attention, and Vanessa Mitchell, once threatened with destruction by the very system she had served, now led the transformation of that system from within. One department, one policy, one life at a time. Vanessa Mitchell's journey reminds us that systemic racism persists through interconnected networks of power and silence. True justice requires not just addressing individual incidents, but dismantling entire systems of oppression. The story shows how those who benefit from discrimination will fight fiercely to maintain their privilege, using intimidation, character assassination, and even violence against truth seekers. Yet it also demonstrates the power of persistence, evidence, and community solidarity in overcoming entrenched corruption. Institutional change requires both courageous individuals willing to risk everything and communities ready to stand with them despite threats. The most important lesson is that justice is never finished. It's an ongoing commitment requiring vigilance and determination. Even when victories are won, the struggle continues as systems resist reform. By understanding how racism operates through economic, legal, and political structures, we can more effectively challenge it. Change is possible, but it demands unflinching dedication to truth and the willingness to confront power at its source. Have you ever witnessed or experienced racial injustice and found yourself standing alone against a system designed to silence you? Comment below with what gave you strength in those difficult moments. If you believe every person deserves equal treatment regardless of their race, hit that like button to stand with Vanessa Mitchell and countless real-life heroes fighting similar battles. Subscribe to join our community committed to shining light on painful truths that need to be told. Share this story with someone who needs to understand how racism operates through institutions, not just individuals. Thank you for bearing witness to this journey. May we all find the courage to speak truth to power when the moment demands it.